like how the temperature you'd give it to a baby. So this is the butterfly catheter. This is the part that will actually be going into the bunny. And I'm actually going to untwist. This is sterile, so I can put that in there. I will go ahead and connect and twist. Now this line is going to be filled with air. So we don't want to inject air, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the fluid until it comes out the tip here. So the fluid came out of the tip, so that's how I know that this now no longer has air. So when I go like this, you see how the fluid shoots out? So that's good, that's exactly what I want. So with the dominant hand, or non-dominant hand actually, I'm going to do what is called a tenting. So I'm going to build a tent with her scruff. So you see how there's all this extra fur? That's where I want to poke. So when I pull up the skin, it's going to create a tent. So if you want to feel where my finger is, you can go ahead and poke. So you feel how that inside of that tent right there, that gap between the two folds?
Yeah, so you're just pinching up right under here?
Yeah, by the shoulder blades.
Okay.
And when you do that, it'll create a little triangle.
Okay.
So if you want to try feeling again, you can. So do you feel that little triangle?
Yeah.
That, and then there's a little
Like
gap?
a hole, yeah.
Exactly. So that hole is where I'm going to poke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my bevel is up. So the whole part is facing upwards. It's just a formality thing. So I have the needle. Again, the worst part is just the handling. They're usually fairly good about the poking. So I'm gonna feel for that tent again, and I'm just going to poke right into that tent. Good job. I'm just gonna let go. The whole needle is inside, so if you wanna come look, the needle is inside the bunny. And what I'm going to do is I'm gonna look here at this part, because what I'm gonna do now is to make sure that we're not in the bloodstream. So I'm just going to pull the syringe back. You see how it moves back and forth? Yeah. That means I have resistance, which is exactly what I want. Oh, don't be angry. So because I have resistance, that means I'm good to go. If I were to pull and I just keep getting air and it keeps pulling and pulling, that means I went through the skin. So all that means is pull out, get a new needle, and try again. So now that the butterfly catheter is securely inside, I'm just going to push down on this part, and there's going to be a giant bubble that's going to form. That is normal. That's the fluid going under the skin. So I'm just gonna push, 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 push. I'm pushing. Some fluid's leaking out. That's okay, that's also normal. So since fluid is leaking out, I'm just going to hold for about 30 seconds. And as you can see, again, she was very, very good about it. The fluids shouldn't, be too warm because that can cause discomfort. Again, if fluid leaks, that is normal, that does happen. And the fluid bubble will go down within the next couple hours when the body absorbs it. And again, it's usually the handling that they dislike the most. The needle and the fluids itself are not painful. It just looks scary because we're poking her. But she was such a good girl. And then I can just dry her off with a little towel just to get that excess. Just to get that excess off her fur.
So that needle is done with?
Exactly,
okay.
Yeah. But you have extras in there. Just to dry her off a little bit. And then once you're done with that, please do not throw it in the trash, the needle. If you have somewhere secure that you can put that in, that's usually preferred.
Like what?
Like a Ziploc or like a glass container. And then you can drop it off at your local fire station. Usually we don't ask owners to bring them back, but if you're gonna be back anyway and you wanna bring it, we'll take it, it's fine.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna keep this together, and then this part you can reuse for more fluids so you don't have to waste it, okay?
And how do I get the fluid out of there into there?
Oh, right. So this little part, rubber bit that pokes out, that is where you're going to poke in. So I don't know if you have somewhere where you can hang this at home. It's usually easiest if it's hung up somewhere. If not, it's okay. you'll just poke into the bag. And once you poke into the bag, I mean, you can see the needle there.
Oh, my
Hey, sweetheart. And then you will just pull back with the syringe. I need more hand muscle for this, but that's why it's easier if you hang it, and then that way you can use both arms to pull the fluid.
Okay.
And you just pull,
Maybe
pull.
like hang it from the shower.
Or something, yeah. And then if ever, for example, the fluid is too warm, so say, you know, you warmed it up and you test it on your skin and you find it's too warm, that's okay. So what you can do is, because the fluid is sterile, you can actually inject the fluid back into the bag. So say it's really, really hot, I will put back maybe 10 or 15 mLs. So let's say I put it back, right? And then I'm going to re-pull up that 10 or 15 mLs. So essentially what's happening is I'm pushing out the really hot fluid and I'm pulling in the cooler fluid. And then after I have that fluid, I can go ahead and I'll kind of rock it back and forth to mix the new fluid and the old fluid that I had warmed up. And then I would just go ahead and test it on my skin again to make sure that it's not too hot or it's not too cold. So if you want to feel this is the water straight from the bag. So that's really cold, yeah. So even though it's room temperature, it's too cold. It's too cold.
And how do you know when to stop warming it up?
You'll see that the outside will kind of start getting steamy, some
So
condensation.
you heat that up, not this?
No, yeah.
Okay.
You don't need to, yeah, just because if you were to warm up this whole thing, if it was too warm, it would be hard to cool it down. You know what I mean? But at least if you warm this bit up, that's why I pulled up 45 mLs. So that way I could have the 5 milliliters to test out on my skin, because we're giving 40. So that extra 5 will give me that extra fluid amount to kind of play with. Do I need it warmer? Do I need it cooler? And I mean, there's also videos online that are really good on YouTube you can look at. I mean, you can always ask for another demonstration appointment. We can always do another one of these. You're such a good girl.
I should have asked her if any of them have died.
I want to, but it's a delicate question.
Hi. Bet you were not expecting the camera to be on already.
No, especially not such a rush day.
I know. So let's just take a look at this bunny.
Okay, oh, let me put this thing down. Get with me! Out of my way!
So why don't you explain what's going on with Oscar?
He's in a situation where he's with a lot of unneutered males altogether. Basically, it's a hoarding situation. I mean, she doesn't consider herself a hoarder because she loves the bunnies.
Most
but,
hoarders don't
but
consider
you're right.
themselves
Most hoarders don't, and she's a sweet person. She has a good heart, but she has no idea about bunnies, how to feed them, how to care for them, how to keep them safe. But she does feed them. She just doesn't feed them incorrectly. correctly.
Where are they living right now?
They're living in her backyard, and she just has a sort of not even a half shed, but a covered sort of shed area with open sides, and she's chicken wired it shut, and they still got out, so she had to really chicken wire it, so she can't even get in to get them, and the food is just...
Hey Lennies, welcome back.
Hey everyone, Lorelai here. As you can see by the title of this video, there really is no way around this other than what it is. And I just want to preface this by saying that, you know, this is a video I've really not wanted to make for a long time. Firstly, because I really wanted to confirm what exactly was going on with Lennon before putting any information out there that was subject to change. And secondly, because the reactions honestly can be very triggering for somebody like me. Ironically, when people send their condolences and things like that, it actually makes me feel worse. I certainly welcome uplifting messages and positivity and optimism during this time because that is the frame of mind that I'm trying to remain in. I've made this video like 3 times already because I can't seem to get it right, and I cry a lot. So bear with me if it feels a bit disjointed. So back in August, incidentally on my birthday, Lennon was diagnosed with kidney insufficiency, also known as kidney disease. Just basically means that her kidneys are not concentrating her urine as well as they should be. The way that I found out was the fact that she was becoming incontinent. And if you don't know what that means, it means that she was having a lot of potty accidents. I noticed that she was unable to control her bladder and her bowel movements. You know, when it first started happening, it was just like once or twice, and I kind of chalked it up to like, oh, she's just getting old, but then it just happened so frequently at such short intervals that it became extremely concerning. Unfortunately, I couldn't get her in to see her usual vet at the time because her normal vet is like super booked up. She's very, very popular. So I took her to somebody else that we had never met, but I wanted a second opinion. I really wanted to get into her usual vet. She's a really great rabbit savvy vet, and I just didn't want this to be the final answer. I had to wait like a month to get in to see our usual vet. So there was still a little bit of uncertainty during that time. So once we got in to see her regular vet, we ran all the same tests, blood work, urinalysis, x-rays, and her vet did in fact confirm that she has kidney insufficiency. And we always knew Lennon had a little bit of arthritis because that was diagnosed like 2 years ago via the x-ray, but she didn't really start showing signs of her arthritis until this year. And it was just kind of like gradual, to be honest. Like she wasn't hopping on the couch anymore. And then that snowballed into other things like difficulty cleaning herself and reaching for her secotropes. And all of that was like very, very jarring for me, to the point where it wasn't really registering. And I'm not sure how to describe it, but I would say it was a little bit like a cognitive dissonance. It's like, you know, something's happening, but your body just is not like catching up with the information. Both vets had different ideas of how to treat the kidney disease and her arthritis, and I'm just really glad that I went back to her regular vet, and our vet has a lot of experience with kidney insufficiency. So Lennon is getting treatment for everything, arthritis, kidney, and she's gonna be on long-term treatment going forward. And I will make a completely separate video on everything that I'm doing for Lennon, all the adjustments I've made around the house, her medications, her supplements, etc., because I think it's incredibly valuable information. Now, what's the prognosis, you might ask? It's not great. kidney insufficiency is not curable and it only gets worse. The good news is that her vet feels very optimistic that she'll be around for a while. And, you know, as long as she's getting all of her treatments and the proper nutrition and care, I'm going to align myself with that belief as well. Of course, you know, there are no guarantees, and our vet can't give us a specific timeline. So you're probably also wondering, how did Lennon get this? And the truth is, there's really no way to identify how she got this. There are several causes, including old age, E. caniculi, lifestyle trauma, things like that. But you know, we're really leaning toward old age at this point because, you know, organ failure is quite common in rabbits at old age, and actually other pets too. So, you know, most likely this is something you might go through. It's been a lot. It's been a lot of information. It's been really overwhelming, and nobody prepares you for something like this. But I'm working through it, and I'm on my own journey. In addition to my joint journey with Lennon as her caretaker, I'm on my individual journey working through this and working through these emotions and trying to understand and process everything, which is why I hope you guys will follow our journey so that you have somebody to learn from. I would have loved to have a guide through something like this. Maybe some of you already have gone through it with a different pet or your family members, parents. You know, this whole situation has really ignited a discourse in my brain about mortality. And it's been a reminder to me that life is constantly moving and transforming. It's been really difficult for me. It's been jarring for me to witness Lennon's little body changing. In my mind, Lennon was always this really strong, energetic bunny, and it's been really painful for me to see her a little bit weaker. You all know she is the center of my universe, and I am giving her so much love and affection, and she is receiving all of that love right now. She's loving the attention, I'll put it that way. You know, I've never considered myself a rabbit expert. I know a lot of people have labeled me as such, but I've never assumed that role on my own, just because, you know, Lennon, her whole life really was as she appeared on camera, which was almost perfect. Such a good bunny. I never really had to go through any ailments with her in a way that I saw other people struggling with their bunnies. I mean, she never even had GI stasis. And the past couple of months, I've really just submerged myself into a pool of information on her conditions. I've joined Facebook groups. I've called, you know, friends and rabbit rescues and all sorts of people to sort of draw data from and consult with. And I've been to the vet, I would say, like 7 times in the past 3 months, which has put a deep hole into my pockets. But I don't really care about money right now. The only thing that matters to me is Lennon and Lennon's health, and I just want her to be happy, and I want her to feel well. I always preach to be financially stable and have savings for your rabbit, because at some point you'll have to go through this, unfortunately. And it's also a reminder to really know your bunny inside and out, know their behaviors, their patterns, their personality, because when something then is off or abnormal, you will be able to identify it in a timely manner. And that's really what happened with Lennon. I knew that something was off because she never had any issues her whole life. Lennon and I, we've built this life together that's very unique, that nobody will ever understand except me and her. And I would go as far as to say as she's given me almost everything that I have. Yeah, it's been a journey of acceptance, because I didn't want to accept it for a long time. Now you're probably wondering, well, okay, what's the future of the channel and all that? The channel's still gonna keep going. I have no plans to stop the channel. I'm still gonna upload bunny content of all sorts, educational, comedic, videos on what we're going through and the new senior care that I'm giving her. And we're still gonna make, reels and TikToks as long as Lennon is up to it and mobile and active. Well, how is Lennon right now? And I want to make it very clear, Lennon is fine right now. She's happy. She's got a great appetite. She's mobile. She's still hopping around, running for a treat, kissing me, licking me. Nothing has changed in that respect. There are other changes that I described, like I told you, that we're managing. And whenever I feel more comfortable, I'll probably share more. I don't want anybody to think that these are her final days or that, she's close to death or something, because that's what I was afraid of when I was gonna make this video. It's interesting because in one of the other videos, someone left a comment saying, "You're mourning something that's not even gone yet." That comment actually got me thinking that the truth is I am mourning something that is gone. Even though Lennon is very much alive, there's a little part of her that is gone. I am mourning her youth. I am mourning her energy. I am mourning an era. And it's okay. It's okay to have this sort of anticipatory grief or preliminary grief. I think we all feel that at times with our pets, but I'm trying to view it as now it's a new era, it's a different chapter, and again, the chapters will keep changing. So that's it for today's video. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your uplifting messages. We'll be back soon. So, bye. This rabbit has their own closet. They have a wardrobe. This is so stunning. You guys, Lennon lives like a peasant, compared to these rabbits, seriously. Hey Lennies and bunny lovers, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm very excited to bring to you reacting to your rabbit habitats. You guys love this, you eat it up like candy, I owe it to you. Now I have to say I almost shed a tear, guys, looking through these submissions because 95% of them were free roamers. Compared to the very first video I ever made of these, it's just night and day, the submissions that I'm getting now, and it just makes me feel like it's really been worth it, that the message is resonating. Each of these videos keeps getting better and better and better. So, if the majority of these happen to be free roamers, that is the reason why. I'm not specifically looking for that. I did welcome all kinds of submissions, but what I was looking for were very unique setups. Instead of doing the usual video of going off the checklist and making sure that the basics are there, I think we're at a point now where it's more interesting for me to look at setups that can be more of an inspiration to you guys and the rest of us. I'm so sorry if I didn't get to yours. Obviously, it would just be impossible to review everybody's. And yeah, let's just get to this. Please subscribe, smash that like button and all that jazz for unlimited bunny content. You guys know the drill. Follow us on our other socials, because when I put the ad up for this video, it was via Instagram. So if you do want to be part of our next video, go ahead and follow us on Instagram.
Now a word from our sponsor.
Today's video is brought to you by Ritual, so big thank you to them. Even with a perfect diet, it can be hard to get the key nutrients that you need on a daily basis. Ritual helps women fill the gaps in their diet. What I love about it, aside from the minty fresh scent when you open the bottle, are the 2 easy to swallow capsules, and you get 9 high quality nutrients, no fillers, colorants, shady additives. You know exactly what you're putting into your body. Ritual is the obsessively researched multivitamin, reimagining health from the ground up. They're vegan friendly, gluten-free, sugar-free, non-GMO, and allergen-free. I also love that Ritual is super eco-friendly. All of their packaging, the bottles, they're all made from 100% recyclable materials. They even use plant-based ink. They also offer a men's multivitamin, 50 plus prenatal, postnatal, and teen vitamins. And this is all delivered to your doorstep for just $1 a day. You get 9 high quality nutrients. And if you use our code in the description below, you get a 10% discount off your first 3 months, which I think is such a great deal. Everything will be linked, so please check out Ritual. So the first one here, hi Lenny, I'm so excited to be writing this. I have 2 bunny girls, Alyssa and Aylin. Oh my God, I love that your bunnies have human names. Alyssa, like I love when people do that. They are free roamers, but also have an exclusive room for them at our apartment. Oh my gosh. This is in Brasilia, Brazil. I've been there, by the way, so really nice to see some international submissions. This is just stunning. Okay, first of all, I love the decor. I love the detail. You've got a little bunny lamp on the shelf. The color coordination is just excellent. I love that the bunnies have Polaroids of themselves. It's like they're teenage girls. I love the ramp, the castle, everything, the Heidi house, the tunnel. This is an A+ all around. It's really just beautiful. I love that this is going on in Brazil right now, really. So thank you so much for your submission, Christina. Okay, Zayad. This was taken from before I refilled the hay, if you're wondering why it isn't there. I live in Sudan, and so rabbit supplies are very limited. I have a temporary litter box out of cardboard in the corner. I intend on buying an actual litter box. Okay, let's take a look. So, wow, this is very, very interesting. I think you guys know what I'm gonna rate this, but you're wrong. And I'm gonna tell you why. This setup here is an A. This here is a perfect example of someone making the best of their situation using very limited resources. And it just goes to show you that you don't need a lot of money, you don't need a lot of luxury or anything like that to give your bunny the life that they deserve. And that is basically what I've been trying to get to the entire time on this channel. This person even made their own litter box using a cardboard box. Really resourceful and also quite eco-friendly because that can easily be composted. They've made the Heidi house out of a cardboard box. They've got the food in the water bowls. This bunny has a rug that they can run on for traction. The reason this is not an A+ is because I do see a cord in the background, and I think that really needs to be bunny proofed or protected if it already is not. This is my bunny Nutella. Oh my God, I love that your rabbit's name is Nutella because I love Nutella. He has a Holland Lop, 100% free roamed. Okay, this is so freaking cute. Like the bunny has a freaking hat hanging over their, the foot of their bed. They've got such a great, oh my God. That Heidi house is amazing. And I love the, this cat scratcher as a toy. I always suggest that. The litter box is set up perfectly. This is an A+. Honestly, it looks like this person is trolling me. They've got to be trolling me. So, firstly, the bunny's outside. We all know bunnies should not be living outside. They're so vulnerable as prey animals. They can easily escape, or something can easily break in. This bunny's also on a wire-bottomed floor, which is pretty bad for bunny paws because bunny paws don't have any padding, so that can easily cause sore hocks. The amount of pellets being given here as well are just excessive. This could easily cause obesity for sure if the bunny is just eating unlimited pellets every day. Again, I'm not sure of the age of this rabbit. If it is an adult rabbit, you've really got to cut down on that. And then this person also sent a photo of all of their rabbits' waste. Not sure why. Maybe you're trying to show me the hay. Clearly the bunny has a lot of hay. I'm uncomfortable with it being outside. I hope this bunny is not living an isolated life out there. It's by itself. I really would suggest bringing it indoors, and at the very least giving it an exercise pen. So given all of this information, I would rate this a D. Hey Lorelai and Lennon, hope you both are well. We love you so much. My bunny is free roam. Okay, this is absolutely, I don't see anything wrong with this. The bunny is a freaking Christmas tree, like their own little glowy Christmas tree as part of their decoration. I think that's fantastic. They've got a blue LED light inside of their litter box / Heidi house. I think that's pretty freaking cool. Got a bed, the cord is bunny proofed. I don't see anything else that's hazardous. Got a food and water bowl. It's great. It's really great. This is an A+. I'm 13 and so my parents won't allow my bunny to free roam. She used to be in a small cage, but I convinced them to use this space. I know it's not ideal or pretty to look at, but I feel like it can work. I would love to take out the storage and expand it. This is a great example, guys, of not just working with what you've got, but also educating your parents, which she did. She convinced them to get the bunny out of the cage. I mean, man. Props to you, Gwyneth, for that. Seriously, that's very admirable. This is clearly 10 times better than being in a tiny little cage. And you know what? This bunny has everything that they need. Great food and water bowls, hay, they've got a place to hide. The one thing I do worry about is isolation, because it is in an enclosed space like that where the bunny isn't really being seen very easily. I just hope that you monitor your bunny, check up on them multiple times a day, because I'm sure it can be very easy to just put your rabbit in a closet and forget about it, but I'm pretty sure you don't do that. So I'm giving this an A because of all of your efforts and because of what you've done with this space. The reason it's not an A+ is obviously it is on the small side. Okay, Freckle is an 11-month-old broken New Zealand. She free roams in my bedroom. This rabbit has their own closet. Like, they have a wardrobe. That is so cute. This is so stunning. They have like little sombrero hats. Oh my God, so cute. They have hangers in their closet with the clothes on them. Oh my God. Oh, I love that there's like a little corner in your room with a mini fridge. I imagine that's where you keep veggies. You've got a shelf with treats and other little details. This rabbit also has Polaroids of themselves. And I like how the litter box, it's not, again, you guys, not a super glamorous litter box. It's just a see-through container and it's got a little nook there. So I think that's a great place for it. Yeah, A+. A+. Oh my gosh, this is stunning. You guys, Lennon lives like a peasant, like compared to these rabbits, seriously. This is great. This is an A+. I love the litter box. There's a hole on the top where you've clipped a little hay bag feeder. Brilliant, brilliant. I love the hidey houses, so beautiful. I love that you kind of created a section that is a home base, I'm guessing, with the CNC grids, and you left it open. The plants are out of the way, so that's not hazardous. So this is the pen they sleep in at night, but during the day they are free roamed. All right, because you had me worried there for a second. You guys are really liking these Clear X pens. I would say this is a little bit too bleak, in my opinion. There's not a lot going on in this pen. So it's great that they free roam during the day, so brownie points for that. There's no traction on this floor. There's a little blanket. I don't think that this is enough space for 2 rabbits. I like that you've got the food in the water bowls. I don't know how old these rabbits are, but that looks like way too many pellets. If they're babies, that's a different story. If they're adults, you need to cut down. Look, you've got a great litter box. Here's my opinion on this. If they're already free roaming during the day, you could probably very easily graduate to free roaming at night if you just bunny proof properly. I think there's a little bit of a trust issue there, maybe because there's 2 of them. I would definitely look into bunny proofing. Leave this door open, make this the home base. I don't have a problem with them staying here at night, but it needs to become a little bit more habitable. There needs to be a little bit more stimulation. You need to put a rug in there. I think if you have those things, it should be okay. So I'm gonna give this a B+. He has been free roaming for 8 months now, thanks to you and the research I've done. This is an A+. I can just tell you right now. I mean, look, you've got, the bunny has everything they need. They've got a hidey house. I like how you used the NIC grids to protect baseboards and cords. You've got a great litter box, food and water bowls, plenty of toys and stimulation. So this is an A+. 3-month-old Holland Lops. We can't free roam them because we have 3 dogs, but we give them their own room. So this is so excellent. Oh my God, I didn't see the rest of this. This is, okay, your bunnies are basically free roaming, essentially. And if they have their own room, like that's just incredible. I really love the Clear exercise pen. I've actually wanted to try one of those. I mean, in my opinion, it just looks way better than just like a regular metal X pen. But really the mats on the floor, excellent idea. I mean, but the space, really, that's what sticks out to me. And I feel like they've got all of the space that they need. So that's great. A+. Okay, again, I feel like this has got to be a troll. Like, I don't know, because what could I possibly say to something like this, you guys? Like, it's just, that's pretty bad. It's an F. It's just a flat out F. There's nothing I can do or say to make this better. The rabbit needs a completely different litter box. There's no toys, no stimulation. Okay, I give it to you. The bunny has hay and they've got a water bowl, but I'm sorry, that's not gonna make it better. I can't sugarcoat this. This is not an appropriate habitat for a rabbit. It's just not. What you can do is if you wanna remove the caging and make the bottom half a litter box, a water bowl, but I'm sorry, what could I possibly say to someone? I've actually wanted to try one of those. I mean, in my opinion, it just looks way better than just like a regular metal X pen. this is so excellent. Oh my God, I didn't see the rest of this. This is, okay, your bunnies are basically free roaming, essentially. And if they have their own room, like that's just incredible. I really love the clear exercise pen. I've actually wanted to try one of those. I mean, in my opinion, it just looks way better than just like a regular metal X pen. But really the mats on the floor, those things, it should be okay. So I'm gonna give this a B+. He has been free roaming for 8 months now, thanks to you and the research I've done. This is an A+. I can just tell you right now. I mean, look, you've got, the bunny has everything they need. They've got a hidey house. I like how you used the NIC grids to protect baseboards and cords. You've got a great litter box, food and water bowls, plenty of toys and stimulation. So this is an A+. 3-month-old Holland Lops. We can't free roam them because we have 3 dogs, but we give them their own room. So this is so excellent. Oh my God, I didn't see the rest of this. This is, okay, your bunnies are basically free roaming, essentially. And if they have their own room, like that's just incredible. I really love the clear exercise pen. I've actually wanted to try one of those. I mean, in my opinion, it just looks way better than just like a regular metal X pen. But really the mats on the floor, excellent idea. I mean, but the space, really, that's what sticks out to me. And I feel like they've got all of the space that they need. So that's great. A+. Okay, again, I feel like this has got to be a troll. Like, I don't know, because what could I possibly say to something like this, you guys? Like, it's just, that's pretty bad. It's an F. It's just a flat out F. There's nothing I can do or say to make this better. The rabbit needs a completely different litter box. There's no toys, no stimulation. Okay, I give it to you. The bunny has hay and they've got a water bowl, but I'm sorry, that's not gonna make it better. I can't sugarcoat this. This is not an appropriate habitat for a rabbit. It's just not. What you can do is if you wanna remove the caging and make the bottom half a litter box, that's a great alternative. That's how you can repurpose this cage if you so wish to. I can't give this a good grade. I'm really, really sorry. But wow, a lot of bunnies. A lot of bunnies, holy moly. So there's 4 setups here. First of all, bless your heart for being able to house that many bunnies. I think this is a great example of housing multiple bunnies that are not bonded with each other. They do have to remain separated. Now the first photo, everything looks great except for the cords from your air conditioning and whatever else is dangling there. You really, really need to protect those cords. I don't trust those. Now in the second photo, everything looks perfect. I like that it says the Buns house. Very cute. I'm not even kidding. It's absolutely stunning. So the first photo, I'm gonna give you an A-, and the second photo, I'm giving you an A+. Okay guys, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. These bunnies are living the life. You guys are doing such a great job. And again, there were also quite a few in there where, you know, limited resources, limited supplies, or maybe barriers with parents, and still making it work, still giving their bunnies the lives that they deserve. So you don't need to have a huge house, you don't need to have a lot of money. Don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, and hit the bell for unlimited bunny content. We'll see you soon. Bye. Look, instead of me telling you how to improve this, setup, I would just tell you to tear it down and start from scratch, quite honestly. Hey Lennies and bunny lovers, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna be reacting to your rabbit habitats, or as we like to call them, rabbitats. I haven't done this one in many months, and you guys love this series. It really is fun to do. You know, with each of these that I make, I always think, oh, it can't get better than the one. Hey Lennies, welcome back. Hey Lennies, welcome back to the channel. Lennon and Lorelai here. Sorry for not posting as frequently. We've had a really crazy month and a half, and you know, a lot of it has to do with how we're adjusting to Lennon aging, and I've made a couple of videos on that already, and it's a journey. It's a journey that I don't see a lot of people like talking about or making videos on, but I do have a lot of videos that I plan to make around that subject. You know, I've spent my whole career on YouTube talking about how to raise your bunny, you know, how to like live a really great life with them when they're young and healthy, but
this is likely to be the most important election of our lifetime. This is not hyperbole. Never have the stakes been higher, but neither has the choice been so easy to make. This is a video that I dreaded I would have to make. I was really looking forward to the possibility that the Republican nominee would be anyone other than Donald Trump. If it had been Mitt Romney, Nikki Haley, or even Ron DeSantis, this video endorsement would have simply explained that you should vote for whoever you wanted based on your policy preferences, because from a legal perspective, it would have been safe to vote for either candidate. And it was going to be gloriously clickbaity with probably the same title and thumbnail that I used here. But unfortunately, this isn't that video because the Republicans nominated Donald Trump. Again. Others will explain the policy differences between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump. But that's not the point of this video. I have very strong policy preferences, and while they do come out from time to time because law is the result of politics, this video's endorsement is not based on those policy preferences. And when I talk about a policy matter, I'm talking about the laws that a president might sign or the actions they might take, things that they can legitimately do under our system of governance. And those preferences are partisan, and that's fine. Reasonable minds can differ about those policies. But this is not about policy. This is about the law itself. This is an endorsement based on the law from a group of lawyers based on their experience and knowledge of the law, and it's about the preservation of our democracy. So, not to bury the lead, Legal Eagle cannot endorse Donald Trump for president. For the good of our country, the right vote is for Vice President Kamala Harris. Donald Trump represents an affront to the law. Kamala Harris will uphold the law. This election is a choice between a criminal or a prosecutor, and I'd like to explain why this distinction is the only one that matters in this election. Because Donald Trump represents a credible threat to the rule of law, free speech, and free elections. And without the rule of law, free speech, and free elections, the rest simply doesn't matter. At that point, your policy preferences are irrelevant. We believe that if you care about the rule of law, the even-handedness of our governmental and judicial systems, and want to make sure that your vote counts in the future, you cannot vote for Donald Trump in this election. And I'd like to make the case that if you do care about the rule of law, Kamala Harris is the only choice. First, not to state the obvious, but Trump is a criminal who has no respect for the law and seeks to flaunt the law for his personal gain. Trump is a convicted felon many times over. Trump paid off an adult film actress to stop her from going public with their relationship and then falsified business records to hide a violation of election law. A jury convicted him of all 34 charges related to the incident, which was meant to influence the outcome of the 2016 election. Sentencing has been delayed because of the election. Additionally, Trump sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll, then repeatedly defamed her. After Carroll won 2 lawsuits against Trump, the judge ruled that the jury had found that Trump's actions were considered rape according to the common definition of the word. Trump's apparent success as a businessman was built on fraud and a total disregard for the law. Earlier this year, a New York court ruled that Trump fraudulently misrepresented his financial figures to get cheaper loans and other benefits. This went on for decades. Trump is now banned from serving as an officer and director of any New York corporation. He was barred from taking out loans from a New York bank, and now must pay hundreds of millions of dollars in fines. And there are myriad of other cases. Trump was forced to pay $25 million to students who attended Trump University because the real estate seminars were a scam. Trump is banned from running a charity in New York because he misused charity funds for his political campaign. And that list of verdicts, settlements, and convictions is likely to grow substantially. Trump was indicted for illegally retaining highly classified defense documents and obstruction of justice. The most serious charge against Trump is that he retained national defense information, which is a violation of the Espionage Act. Trump kept these secret documents at his private club, a place that has been described as a haven for spies. Trump was indicted in Washington, D.C. for conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights, all in an effort to overturn the 2020 election results. In Georgia, Trump was charged with committing a range of crimes related to the 2020 election in that state, including racketeering, solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer, and false statements. And Trump has been impeached twice. First, related to Ukraine. Trump's first impeachment occurred following a House inquiry that determined that he solicited foreign interference in his re-election bid, and Trump obstructed the investigation by instructing his administration officials to disregard subpoenas for documents and testimony. Trump tried to force Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden by withholding military aid. And Trump also tried to promote a conspiracy theory that Ukraine, not Russia, was responsible for interfering in the 2016 presidential election. And his second impeachment was incitement to insurrection. The House of Representatives impeached Trump for encouraging his supporters to storm the Capitol in an attempt to disregard the certification of the 2020 presidential election. Now, obviously, both times he escaped conviction in the Senate, but remember, impeachment is a political remedy, not a legal one. But the Trump bipartisan impeachments were unprecedented. And even Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell suggested that Trump should be convicted in court regardless of the impeachment in Congress. There's a disturbing pattern of Trump's crimes. They are explicitly intended to subvert the democratic process. Trump has run for president 3 times in the last decade, and each time he's tried to illegally and improperly influence the outcome of the election. In 2016, Trump engaged in the hush money scheme to prevent news of his affair with Stormy Daniels from going public. And the Mueller report documents the many contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian operatives, concluding that Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election by waging social media disinformation campaigns and by hacking the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
The report also details 10 instances where Trump attempted to interfere with the investigation and obstruct justice. 34 individuals and 3 companies were indicted because of the Mueller report, including Trump allies Roger Stone, Mike Flynn, and Paul Manafort, who you will recall was Trump's campaign chairman. If a man is judged by the company that he keeps, Trump has surrounded himself with corruption. His 2016 campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, and vice chairman Rick Gates were convicted of conspiracy against the United States. His advisors, Roger Stone, Peter Navarro, and George Papadopoulos, committed obstruction of justice, contempt of Congress, and making false statements. Trump Organization CFO, Alan Weisselberg, was convicted of tax fraud. Trump's national security advisor, Mike Flynn, lied under oath. Chief strategist Steve Bannon was convicted of contempt of Congress, and that's only the beginning of his troubles. His former personal attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, was convicted of campaign finance violations. His fundraiser, Elliot Broidy, went down for corruption and bribery. Even his lawyers, Ken Chesebro, Jenna Ellis, and Sidney Powell, pleaded guilty to crimes related to the 2020 election. And unbelievably, on his way out the door, Trump granted clemency to his corrupt political advisors, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Michael Flynn, Steve Bannon, and George Papadopoulos. In 2020, Trump did everything he could to overturn the results of that election, even if that meant disenfranchising millions of voters. He pressured the governor and secretary of state of Georgia to find him votes, just enough to win. And not for nothing, he encouraged the riot outside and the siege inside of the US Capitol to stop the 2020 election. For the first time since 1820, the Capitol was laid siege. He encouraged the rioters to kill Mike Pence. He sought to delay the results of the election by any means necessary. And as detailed in the DC prosecution, this was only the most visible part of a larger conspiracy to make sure that the election certification never happened. As you can see, many of Trump's crimes and conduct strike at the heart of our democracy. They are both self-serving and anti-democratic. The hush money payments were meant to keep the information from hurting him in the election. The Ukrainian blackmail scheme was for the purpose of soliciting a bribe in the form of fabricating dirt on his presumptive political rival, Joe Biden. And he conspired to bring down Congress. And here we are in 2024, and Trump is once again waging war on the democratic process. He's already declaring the election rigged against him. His running mate denies that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. His hand-picked leader in the House of Representatives won't commit to certifying the results. And he pressured Republicans in swing states to pass legislation and rules preventing the states from counting votes until election night. He subverted democracy before and is trying to do it again, right in front of our faces. Which takes me to the next point. Donald Trump will destroy our core freedoms for his own personal gain. Trump frequently undermines free speech by attacking the media, individual journalists, social media platforms, and critics. He retaliated against John Bolton for writing a book, which is the ongoing subject of my lawsuit against the government. A never-sent draft resignation letter by General Mark Milley said Trump was, quote, doing great and irreparable harm to the US in 2020 after police used tear gas and batons to clear protesters and journalists out of the then-president's way for a photo op in Lafayette Square. Law enforcement used tear gas because Trump was told he couldn't just shoot the protesters. He has repeatedly called the press the enemy of the people and weaponized the DOJ against certain reporters. Trump said he would revoke the broadcast license of CBS, which isn't a thing you can do, because they interviewed his opponent, Kamala Harris. And Trump has a game plan if he's elected again. It's called Project 2025. Project 2025 is a bespoke manual for fascism. It lays out exactly what Trump can do, how he can do it, and who he can staff the government with. And the worst part is it includes a whole bunch of things that are arguably legal, but are just old-timey fascism. Trump wants to do one of those one weird tricks, but for ending civil liberties. For example, the Comstock Act of 1873 is a federal law that regulated the distribution of materials considered to be obscene, lewd, or immoral. The law primarily targeted materials related to birth control, abortion, pornography, and contraceptives. The law is still on the books, and Trump and his allies want to enforce it once again to ban medical abortions and contraceptive and criminally convict doctors. And then there's the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, one of the 4 laws known collectively as the Alien and Sedition Acts, passed by Congress during the presidency of John Adams. The Alien Enemies Act gave the president the authority to detain, arrest, imprison, or deport non-citizens from nations that were considered to be hostile to the United States. And Trump has said he wants to use this law to use the military on American soil to inter and deport tens of millions of immigrants. And he doesn't just want to stop there. He wants to use the Alien Enemies Act to use the military to deport legal immigrants, including Dreamers and Haitian immigrants, who are legally residing in the United States, and who, I will remind you, despite the blood libel levied by Trump, did not eat any cats or dogs. That was a complete fabrication. And under the same auspices, Trump has also vowed to use the military against Democrats, who he claims are the enemies from within. You don't have to take our word for it. Many of Trump's key appointees and advisors will absolutely not vote for him in 2024. The list is vast and growing. It includes former Vice President Mike Pence, former Chair of the Joint Chiefs Mark Milley, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, former Secretary of Defense James Mattis, former Attorney General Bill Barr, former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, and former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. And this is merely the tip of the iceberg. There are hundreds, if not thousands more. There has never been an administration in history where so many of the people that the president himself appointed have changed their mind and stated that the president is unfit for office. In part, they recognize that Trump with full faculties was a threat to democracy. General Mark Milley called Trump, quote, a fascist to the core. But it's clear that Trump is also in mental and physical decline. His speeches are word salads. He doesn't live in the same reality that we do, and he just simply makes up facts all day long. And while losing a step when you're almost 80 is not necessarily incompatible with a successful presidency, here the lack of mental faculty means he's more likely to be taken advantage of by his advisors and more quickly to jump to authoritarian tactics. History has shown that Donald Trump will always take the easy road, and in a second term, there won't be anyone to curb those tendencies. Which brings us to the economy. Economic policies are usually based in policy preferences. There are some who welcome Trump's plan to place tariffs on all foreign goods. In other words, a sales tax of up to 200% on anything made outside of the United States, a tax that you, the consumer, would pay, which would cause all Americans to pay thousands more per year. In one instance, an iPhone might cost as much as $4,000. And then, of course, other countries would retaliate by levying the same tariffs on US goods, which would kill US exports. But that's not necessarily illegal. But those who think that Trump would be better for the economy fail to take into consideration the effect of Trump's lawlessness on this country and the economy. The only other economic plan that he talks about would be to deport tens of millions of immigrants, many of whom came to this country as children and lived as Americans for decades. This policy, while likely completely infeasible, would also be a disaster for the economy and do next to nothing for high prices. But more importantly, Trump's destruction of the rule of law, free speech, and free elections would itself be terrible for the economy. Individuals and businesses rely on the notion that government will apply the law even-handedly, and they even require the freedom to be critical of the government without fear of government reprisal. And they need to know that when a politician is voted out of office, they will leave peacefully. And they need to know that a politician will not use the office for personal gain at the expense of their country, unlike Trump, who steered government and foreign contracts to his own businesses, like the Trump Hotel, and then promptly sold that when he left office. When you take away free speech rights, property rights, and fair elections, and then add in graft and crony capitalism for the president and their friends, you have a recipe for economic disaster, apart from the legal disaster in and of itself. Imagine Germany in 1932, Venezuela in 2005, or Hungary in 2010. Let's not add the United States in 2024 to that list. Countries with strong legal systems attract more foreign investment. Businesses need to trust that contracts will be upheld, and they need to know that their success doesn't depend on whether they personally like the president or not. Trump has threatened CEOs who don't support him. He gave contracts to his friends. He filled his White House with nepotistic advisors, and specifically his son-in-law exploited his position to personally enrich himself. At base, Trump's advantage on the economy is an illusion. Which takes me to my final point. This time, it's different. Obviously, we saw what a Trump presidency can look like. He was president for 4 years. So why is this the most important election of our lifetime? Well, this time there are no guardrails. There is no deep state, but there are long-held institutions. The career bureaucrats and political appointees with half a conscience who pushed back against Trump's worst impulses. And sometimes it worked. His own advisors would slow walk his craziest ideas. But Trump learned his lesson, which is why Project 2025 is so frightening. But Project 2025 vows to remove over 1 million federal employees and would replace expert and nonpartisan civil servants with a raft of political loyalists. We've all taken it as a given at this point that if Trump is elected, he would end the many active DOJ investigations and prosecutions into himself on day one, and frankly, it's frightening that we all just assume that he's going to do that at this point. But if he does, that would likely result in mass resignations at the Department of Justice. And Trump would relish that and simply install political loyalists instead. Heck, he might do it even without the resignations. Yes, he was impeached twice, but he was also acquitted twice. Congress will not stop the next President Trump. And in the interim, the Supreme Court not only granted sweeping immunity, but it basically laid out an instruction manual on how to do all of the above. Want to use your Department of Justice to prosecute your enemies for no reason? Fine, you're totally immune. What's that? You want to shoot your political rival? Don't be silly, just bomb them with an F-35. Now it's totally legal and totally cool. The current Supreme Court says have at it. The guardrails that once existed to keep Trump's worst impulses in check are simply gone. A second-term President Trump would gut the administrative state and fill it with political cronies. Congress will rubber stamp everything that he does. The Supreme Court will continue to say that almost everything he does is immune. And Trump will claim that any election that he loses is illegitimate. There's only one guardrail left. A vote so overwhelming he can't dispute it. So that brings me to my closing argument. Vice President Harris is the only sane choice in this election. She is a former state prosecutor and state attorney general. She believes in free and fair elections and in free speech. This election is a choice between law and criminality. As senator, Harris grilled Trump Attorney General Bill Barr about whether he ever opened an investigation because Trump asked him to attack his enemies. And this is a key point because as Attorney General, Barr eroded the rule of law himself, though he has now changed tunes. He misrepresented the Mueller report's findings and shut down an investigation into whether Trump took a $10 million bribe from Egypt to fund his 2016 campaign. And I do not believe Harris will appoint an attorney general who weaponizes the Department of Justice the way that Trump has. I believe that Harris will support Supreme Court justices who preserve the rule of law and not grant sweeping immunity to the single most criminal president. I believe she will only nominate judges who the American Bar Association says are qualified, and while this is a low bar, Trump can't clear that bar as he nominated 10 judges who the ABA rated as completely unqualified. And I believe it is highly likely that she will not destroy the rule of law. It is highly likely that she will actually uphold the rule of law. And saying that out loud, I can't believe how low the bar is, but that's where it's been set. There it is. You have the choice between someone who will promote free and fair elections, promote core freedoms, and uphold the rule of law versus a wannabe dictator. Now, I'm sure many of you already agree with Harris's policy positions, and for those people, you're already convinced of her bona fides. And to those people, all I will say is go out and vote. Elections are won by turnout. Please do whatever you can to vote this year and convince your friends to do the same and not sit on the sideline. But for those of you that disagree with some or all of Harris's policy choices, I hear you. I also don't agree with everything that she espouses. But Kamala Harris appears to be running as a fairly standard Democratic president, both small d and big D Democratic. Even if you hate Democratic policies, a normal Democratic president is better than a fascist Republican. A president who agrees with every single one of your policy positions but has this one thing where he destroys the government isn't really worth it. And even if you didn't get everything you wanted out of the last 4 years, or even if you hate Joe Biden, wasn't it nice having a normal person in the White House instead of a crazy weirdo? Wasn't it nice not waking up to deranged tweets and chaos? It's not a given, but it is frighteningly possible that if Trump is elected again, there is no coming back from this. Many of our institutions held back Trump's worst instincts, and it's possible that they might again. But he, and more importantly, his radical advisors, learned their lessons and won't make the same mistakes twice. 2020 was a trial run. This time the restraints are gone. This really is an election between a felon and a prosecutor. Donald Trump is a clown. But he's a clown with a gun. And even a clown can be dangerous, sometimes especially so. And this clown would have the nuclear codes and the DOJ. I think that there is a non-zero chance that he would use the Department of Justice and the US military against Americans who criticize him, against ordinary Americans who he calls the enemies from within. I think that because he keeps saying explicitly that. So whatever your policy preference on the left or the right, I promise you, it is more important to preserve the rule of law. So hopefully for the last time, Legal Eagle makes a presidential endorsement for this year's election. Legal Eagle wholeheartedly endorses Kamala Harris for President of the United States. Now go out and vote, because it could be your last.
This video is done in cooperation with Skillshare. To claim your special deal, use the link in the video description below. An ATR 72-600 from Royal Air Maroc Express is on final approach into Al Hoceima Airport in Morocco. The crew is flying something called non-precision approach, and the weather is quite misty. As they get down to their minimum descent altitude, their minima, the captain doesn't see anything, but still decides to continue the descent below the minima. Now, what's about to happen is one of the most serious incidents, and indeed accidents, that I have ever read about. It's as close to a complete holos that you could ever come. This is a story about Royal Air Maroc Express Flight 439. Stay tuned. Royal Air Maroc Flight 439 was the third flight of the day for the crew. The crew was based in Casablanca on the ATR 72, and the roster for the day on the 9th of July 2018 was to do what we call a V-leg flight. This means that the crew start at their home base, which is Casablanca in this case. Then they were supposed to fly to Al Hoceima. From Al Hoceima, they're flying on to Tangier, make a quick turnaround in Tangier, fly back to Al Hoceima, and then back home to their home base in Casablanca again. These flights are all relatively short flights, and they're all domestically inside of Morocco. Royal Air Maroc Express is a wholly owned subsidiary to the flag carrier of Morocco, Royal Air Maroc, and the aircraft that is being flown is, like I mentioned before, an ATR 72-600. It's one of the older 600s in the fleet, and it's a high-winged turboprop aircraft. And the fact that it's high-winged is likely going to have a very high significance in this story. Now, in the cockpit on this day is a very experienced senior training captain for Royal Air Maroc. He is 61 years old, has 13,487 hours in total, but only 193 hours on the ATR 72. And that's because he has done the most of his experience on the 737NG, where he was flying for the flag carrier, Royal Air Maroc, earlier as a line training captain. Together with him in the cockpit is a much more junior first officer. He's 25 years old, he has 1,063 hours in total, and 815 of those hours is flown on the ATR 72. So he's basically done his whole career on this aircraft, where he started about a year earlier. There's also a cadet sitting on the jump seat. The reason that the cadet is there is just to observe the operation, because the cadet is part of the recruitment program for Royal Air Maroc Express. So the cadet is not qualified on the ATR 72 when this happens. On the planning stage, the pilots are looking at the weather, and they realize that at least in one of their destinations, Al Hoceima, the weather is a bit marginal. It's overcast clouds with a cloud layer of about 600 feet, and there is also a very high air humidity. You can see that on the weather report because the temperature was 23 degrees, and the dew point, which is the temperature when clouds start to form, was also 23 degrees. So this is indicative of some quite tricky conditions at Al Hoceima. Now, Al Hoceima as an airport is also a little bit tricky. It's surrounded on both the south and east and west side by terrain, which means that there's only an instrument arrival available from the north toward the south, runway 17. And because the terrain is fairly high on the sides, the minima for the non-precision approach is also set quite high. And that's because you need to be able to attain certain terrain clearance margins when you do the missed approach. So even though the approach in itself is flown completely over water, the minima is still quite high in order for them, in case of missed approach, to be able to get up above the terrain as quickly as possible. With all of this in mind, the line training captain sets out the plan for the day, and he says that I am going to be pilot flying for the first leg. That way I can show you how to fly this non-precision approach into Halothema. And then for the second, third and fourth flight, the first officer is going to be pilot flying and the captain is going to be pilot monitoring instead. All said and done, the aircraft taxis out as normal in Casablanca. It takes off and it climbs up to their cruising altitude of flight level 160, which is about 16,000 feet. Because remember, these are all domestic flights inside of Morocco and they're quite short, all of them. During their relatively short cruise phase on their way up towards Al Hoceima, the crew receives a system warning for the EGPWS system. That's the Enhanced Ground Proximity Warning System. And the warning basically says terrain fault. Okay? That's an indication that the system has gone into a slightly degraded mode. And the crew discusses this among themselves and realizes that it's probably because of a temporary lack of satellites, GPS satellites. And that can happen from time to time, right? If there's not enough satellites to give a good enough position for the aircraft to satisfy the EGPWS system, well then it's going to give this warning for as long as, you know, there is a lack of satellites. And 6 minutes later, this warning disappears, which indicates that the system is now fully functional again. The crew doesn't discuss this much more. They continue towards Al Hoceima. They initiated their descent. Remember, the captain is pilot flying for this one. And they decide that they're going to fly a RNAV approach. Right? This is an approach that is a non-precision approach based on GPS coordinates on the way into Al Hoceima. The minimum for this particular approach is 1,030 feet. That's the lowest that you're allowed to fly without having a proper visual picture of the runway that you're about to fly into. Right? So as you reach 1,030 feet, you need to see the runway that you're about to land on in order to continue the approach. This is an issue because the cloud base is reported to be only 800 feet. The cloud base is the lower part of the clouds. Okay? So if you have a MDA, a minima, which is at 1,030 feet, and a cloud base that is 800 feet, it means that you're likely inside of cloud as you reach your minima and you won't be able to see the runway as needed. All said and done, the crew elects to continue to start the approach anyway. They fly the approach reasonably stabilized, but when they get down to their MDA, their minima, they don't see anything. The captain cannot see the runway in front of him. Now the correct thing to do in this case is to initiate a go-around. Okay, because you don't legally have what it takes in order to continue the approach. But here is where things are starting to really become shady, because the captain now decides to continue the descent without visual references below the MDA. He initiates the descent in a vertical speed mode, means he's telling the aircraft to continue to descend at a set rate of 1,000 feet per minute. Now if you go in and have a look at the descent rate that you get from the approach plate, you can see that at around 120 knots that they're flying, they should be around 650, 700 feet per minute. So this means that the captain is now descending quicker than the actual approach path is. About a minute later, the EGPWS, the Ground Proximity Warning System, issues a hard warning. It says, terrain ahead, pull up.
Terrain ahead, pull up.
Now, this is extremely serious warning because this is the aircraft telling you that you are in a position where you're likely going to suffer a CFIT accident, a controlled flight into terrain accident. The only acceptable way to react to that warning is to do what we call a terrain escape maneuver. Okay? That is a maneuver where you just add full thrust, you pitch up, and you make sure that you maintain your current configuration. And this is basically just escaping, trying to get away from the terrain as quickly as possible, because that warning indicates that you don't really know where you are. Something has gone wrong in your navigation and you've ended up in a place where you are close to terrain where you shouldn't be. So this is the training we all receive. You know, all pilots that are flying aircraft that are equipped with a GPWS system are trained to do this exact maneuver if they get this warning. But that's not what happens. Instead, the captain actually continues to descend, disregarding this warning. He gets as low as 45 feet over the sea. Then he levels the aircraft off. He climbs up to a maximum altitude of 108 feet, that's about 33 meters over the sea, and continues flying at that altitude until he sees the runway and goes into land. This is an outrageous disregard for established procedures and minimums. And you would ask yourself, what is the first officer doing in the middle of all this? Well, it turns out not much, right? There's not much calls coming from the first officer in this. It seems like the captain is basically flying this aircraft by himself and is getting very minimum support or suggestions from the first officer. Now, what he should have said was he should have initiated, do the terrain escape maneuver, or at least a go-around, something like that, because it's a flagrant disregard of procedures. But this did not happen. The aircraft lands from this approach, they taxi into the terminal, and just to give you an idea here, it's if you find yourself in a situation where you've had a hard GPWS warning, well then after you've initiated and done the terrain escape maneuver and then gone in and landed off that, you are actually required to stop the aircraft, pull the cockpit voice recorder circuit breaker to make sure that everything that led up to that incident is being saved, and then you call your company. And most likely you're going to be stood down. You're not going to be able to continue to fly after an incident like that, right? Because there needs to be an investigation. This doesn't happen. Instead, the crew makes their turnaround in Al Hoceima. They fly a very short flight over towards Tangier, and then after they've landed in Tangier, sitting on the apron there, then they start discussing what to do next time that they're coming into Al Hoceima. Okay? And what's about to happen now, guys, is many magnitudes worse than the first approach, believe it or not. So when they're sitting on the apron now in Tangier, the first officer is going to be pilot flying for this leg, and they decide to do a combined departure and approach briefing. Now this is fairly common. If you're doing really short flights, there's not enough time in flight to do a proper approach briefing. So what you do then is that you go through and discuss the approach briefing on the ground, and then you just do the small applicable parts, like making sure that the FMC is properly set up, the computer, and that the minimums are set when you're in flight, and then you just recap what you talked about on the ground. So this is perfectly normal. Now the captain says that on the next approach that we do into Al Hoceima, we're not going to do the RNAV approach that we did last time. Instead, we're going to do a VOR approach. Okay? This is still a non-precision approach, but this time it's flown not with references to GPS points, but with references to a ground-based VOR nav aid. The benefit of doing that is that the minima is a little bit lower. So the MDA on the VOR approach is 760 feet instead of 1,030 feet. And the thought here obviously is that they noticed already that the weather wasn't great at Al Hoceima, and they want to get as low down towards the airport as possible in order to see the runway. This makes perfect sense. But in this part of the briefing, the captain is also saying to the first officer that if you get down to 760 feet, and we don't see anything, then I want you to continue to descend to 400 feet instead. We'll level off, and then we'll continue to fly at 400 feet until we reach the missed approach point, which is at 2 nautical miles prior to the VOR. If we haven't seen anything there, well then we will execute the missed approach. Once again, this is a flagrant disregard for the rules, right? The MDA is there for a reason. It's there to safeguard the flight in case of a missed approach. So why is the captain so keen on going lower? Well, we'll never really know that for sure, but the likelihood is that the captain knows that the approach is flown over water. So he doesn't see the danger in going below the MDA, the minima, because there's only water there anyway. And he's also done exactly that on the previous approach and managed to land off it. Okay, it's a little bit of get there-itis, when a flight crew is so focused on getting the aircraft to land at their destination that they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Okay, all said and done, the first officer agrees that that we can do this, right? Which is a complete no-no, by the way. But also here, he comes with his own little suggestion. And he says that since they got that warning, the GPWS warning on the previous approach, maybe we should turn off the GPWS on this approach because that warning was a bit untimely. Obviously, that warning was untimely because they shouldn't have been where they were, right? They were 1.7 kilometers away from the runway at 45 feet. So this suggestion indicates a fundamental lack of understanding for what the system is doing. But there is also a possibility that he might have thought that the warnings were incorrect because of the earlier issues that they had with the EGPWS system on their flight over towards Al Hotheima on their first flight. We will never really know that. In any case, the captain takes up the minimum equipment list, which is a manual that we have where if we have a broken system on board the aircraft, we can verify in this manual whether or not we're allowed to fly with it or if we need engineering to fix it. Now this MEL, it's not supposed to be used for deciding which systems that we can turn off. It's supposed to be there in case something breaks and we want to know whether or not it's safe to fly with that system not functioning. Anyway, the captain decides by reading the MEL that it is perfectly legal to fly without it, so we can turn it off. So already here you can kind of see how the kind of holes in the Swiss cheese model is starting to line up, right? They're already briefing about how to disregard established rules and turning off systems that are there to save them, to help them, the kind of final warning systems that are there to avoid disasters. Now, before we continue and explain what happens on this second approach into Al Hoceima, there are a couple of things that we need to discuss. First of all, a stabilized approach. Okay. Now, I have mentioned the importance of stabilized approaches in previous videos. Okay. Many other accidents have happened because the pilots have not been stabilized. Now, what we're trying to achieve with the stabilized approach is to give the pilots time to concentrate on the landing ahead. Okay. We don't want the aircraft to be in a position where a lot of maneuvering is needed, because it's much less likely that if we have to do a lot of maneuvering or a lot of configuration, for example, that we'll be able to get the aircraft safely down. Okay? So what the industry has said is that in most cases, you need to be stabilized either by 1,000 feet if you're inside cloud, or 500 feet if you're night shift visual. And by stabilized, we mean that you need to be on the right altitude, at the right position. You need to have the correct speed. You need the aircraft to be configured the way it should be configured, with gear down and the final flaps out. Okay? The thrust needs to be set at a final approach value, which is appropriate, with only minor changes to be done on all of these things. If that's the case, well, then you're stabilized and you can continue the approach for a safe landing. If you reach 1,000 feet in IMC, in the cloud, and you are lacking one of these, well, then it's much safer to go around, give yourself some more time, do a second approach, stabilize yourself earlier, and then come down and land. As always, when we're flying, it's all about safety. It's all about giving ourselves the margins needed to land the aircraft in a proper and safe way. Now, the second thing that I want to point out is how the crews are taught to fly a non-precision approach according to their flight crew training manual. So basically, what they're supposed to do and at what distance in order to be able to achieve a stabilized approach. And in the flight crew training manual for Royal Air Maroc Express, it says that prior to the final approach fix, that's the distance when they're supposed to initiate their final descent down towards the runway, 4 miles prior to that, they need to call for flaps 15. Follow quickly with gear down, flaps 30. Now the aircraft is basically completely configured for landing. Just prior to descent, they're supposed to set the missed approach altitude in their autopilot selector. As they fly over the FAF, they're supposed
Hi again, everybody. I'm dedicating today's video on how to stop your bunny from peeing on your bed. I've been getting this question a lot because Lennon is frequently featured in these videos on my bed. Lennon did in fact used to pee on my bed when she was a baby, but thankfully she's outgrown that stage. So first, we have... Okay, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of comments, probably arguing with me about this, but when a bunny is biting you, something is wrong typically, because bunnies are very sweet-natured, docile, they're prey animals, so they're actually quite timid. And unfortunately, they do have this like reputation or stereotype of being like nippers. And if you ever like talk to a non-bunny person, they always have this like strange recollection that they feel compelled to tell you about that one time a bunny bit me, and so therefore I don't like bunnies. And to me, it's very strange because, again, you know, bunnies don't typically bite. However, it does happen. And when it does, it can be startling. And so I'm gonna break down in this video why exactly your bunny could be biting you, as well as the different kinds of bites that you might experience, because not every bite is created equal. All right, and I know that sounds kind of goofy, but you'll be able to tell the difference probably in what's going on based on the bite. Before we get into this, guys, please subscribe, comment, like, and all that stuff, and let's hop right into this video. Also, this is a little irrelevant and I digress, but I know the setup hasn't been the same lately, and that is because Lennon chewed the cord to one of my umbrella lights, and so I'm having to use natural lighting these days until I get a replacement, and I'm just procrastinating. And I'm actually not mad at this situation, although, you know, it is nice to sit at the desk sometimes. Okay, so first I want to talk about why your bunny could be biting you. What are some of the possible causes of biting or aggression? We could call it of more work to undo. Okay, so some of the main causes of a rabbit biting you are, one, probably the most obvious, is some kind of trauma. Okay, your bunny, let's just say you adopted your bunny or you rescued them from a bad situation, and maybe they're coming from a history of, you know, constantly needing to be in self-defense mode. Maybe there was abuse, mishandling, mistreatment. Maybe they were perpetually faced with a predator like a dog or a cat who was scaring them or agitating them. Maybe they were previously attacked by a predator. The next reason is they are asserting their dominance. So as you know, rabbits are very territorial and they operate on a hierarchical system within their community. And so when you first bring a bunny home, you know, maybe they want to show you who's boss, you know? And this is a little more on the rare side because this is most likely to occur with another rabbit, but I wouldn't put it past them to maybe lash out in this way if, again, they are coming from maybe a less than ideal situation. And this brings me to my next point because it's related, which is you've been handling other rabbits or other animals, maybe a dog, a cat, or something else, and they can smell that on you. And that can be extremely intimidating to a bunny, especially a very territorial bunny, a single bunny, or even a bunny that has a partner, but they are very protective of their partner. The quick solution to this is like, just go wash your hands, maybe change your clothes if you really have to, and then things should kind of return back to normal. All right, next, your bunny is very stressed. And maybe this could be due to an environmental change. This could be something major, like you've moved to a completely different house or state or country, or you're traveling, or you have to take them to the vet and they don't like going to the vet. You know, no rabbit likes to be in a car and go to the vet. It's like the thing that they dread, you know? Maybe you just bought a new vacuum or a new washing machine, and every time you turn it on, it freaks them out and they think the vacuum is going to attack them, so they go for your ankle instead. All right, guys, and next, one of the reasons your bunny could be biting you is due to their habitat or their living space. I personally have seen a correlation between aggression and rabbits that live in cages and hutches. And my theory on this is really, if your bunny is isolated and they are not sharing a space with you, if you are just visiting your rabbit once or twice a day to feed them, and then you go about your day and you don't ever think about them again, you're not bonding with them. And so there's a lack of bonding that takes place when your bunny lives in an enclosure like that. Free roaming bunnies are more likely to be happy, and they are more likely to bond with you because they're not going to be as intimidated by you. Think about it. If your bunny is spending all their time in there, it becomes their safe haven. It becomes the only thing they really know. The outside world is completely